Good morning, everyone. Today is Friday, October 3rd, 2025, and we are here for the Colorado Forest Health Council Legislative Committee meeting. I am Chair Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shaw McNally. We welcome you, and we're going to go ahead and do roll call for our membership for quorum. Thank you.
So Samantha Albert, I know, is not going to be able to make it. Pat Dorsey. Looks like Pat's not here yet. Christina Bury.
Morning.
Morning, Christina. Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally.
Present.
Morning, Commissioner. Mark Morgan.
Present.
Good morning, Mark. Julie Stensel.
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning, Julie. Commissioner Veronica Medina.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner. And Allison Lurch.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So we do have quorum, which is great.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here today. And what a beautiful day. I hope it's all beautiful where you're at as well. I'm very grateful for all of you and your attendance. So let's go ahead and move on to the agenda. And I think and we also want to recognize that James Lucero from Department of Natural Resources is in attendance as well. So let's move on to approval of the minutes from September 19th from 2025 from a couple of weeks ago. Did everyone have a chance to review those minutes and have anybody have any additions, changes, or questions? If not, I welcome a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Okay, those minutes are passed. Thank you so much. So now we're going to move on to our presentations and appreciate everyone being here today from those presenters. We're very grateful for your time today. And I guess we'll start with, I'm assuming we're starting with, the order is Northern and then the other, from the Northern Poudre Irrigation Company, since I'm not sure the other, do we have an order? Does it matter who goes first?
We had Northern Water on the agenda first, but I don't see them
them.
on. So maybe
So-
we.
Let's go ahead and, Tab, would you mind go ahead and presenting first? Thank you for being here today. It's great to see you. And Pat's here as well now. I'm sorry, you're muted still. If you wouldn't mind unmuting. Thank you, Tad.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to speak with you all and maybe hit on some of the topics that I specialize in to help you all with what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm general manager of North Poudre Irrigation. I was state director for four states irrigation for a few years as well. We have 19 reservoirs. The highest point in the Poudre Canyon of takeoff point is our APOD. That's what we call alternate point of diversion off of the Poudre River there. Like I said, 19 reservoirs, 120 linear miles of canal. On average, we send anywhere from 58,000 to 72,000 acre feet annually is what we deliver. That's just a little bit of background about North Poudre and how we are tied into this a little bit. I was asked to kind of comment on how the forest health affects the operations and health of the water irrigation companies. So if you don't mind, I'll just jump in there, or is there a particular place? Okay. So basically with North Poudre being the highest takeoff point on the Poudre River, up the canyon, that means we're the first ones to see or catch any sediment, turbidity, floaters, anything like that coming down the river. We are directly connected to what is called the PVP. That is the Poudre Valley Pipeline. That is how the municipalities take the water from our company because they are shareholders in our company. That includes the city of Fort Collins, Elko, and Greeley, along with Nunn, Pierce, we'll just say North Weld Water, that whole water district. So city of Fort Collins, Elko, and North Weld Water District. That is their takeoff point from the river is through our canal system. So to circle back to that, in order for the river to be healthy and the municipalities to pull off of the river, they have to monitor what's called turbidity. And that is basically how dirty is the water, parts per million. And if the river gets too dirty, they can't even utilize their decrees. They start pulling from their reservoir buckets, anything like that. But the most important thing for North Poudre in the timber management is our snowpack and our spring runoff. Anytime after the fire or let's just say a clear cut has gone on, it greatly affects how our snowpack is treated. The timber kind of holds it up there, for say, in lack of better words, and trickles it down to us throughout the spring. A lot of people don't know this, but the Poudre actually goes dry, let's just say third week of June. That river does not produce. All of that water coming down is being released by companies such as myself from those higher mountain reservoirs. And so what you see in the river at that point, typically, if spring runoff is over, those are releases from the ditch companies moving down through the system. But back to the snowpack, basically in the spring, what we count on is filling our reservoirs. We do snowpack analysis up on Deadman, and just to kind of get a temperature of how much moisture is up there. Once we gather all those numbers, that's how we set our allocations. And the most important thing with our allocation is how fast is the mountainside's going to let go of that water. Is it going to be a bare side and all of that water is going to come at once, and we don't have the capacity to grab everything that's coming at us and it goes to Nebraska? So that's why timber management is very important to the irrigation company as well. It also helps a lot with sediment in the sense of keeping that out of the river. I did work with the city of Greeley and Randy Gustafson, a few years ago with helicopters up around Estes, dropping the mulch after the fire and everything. We did get to go back and see how that worked. It was a great experience. The biggest issue that I saw, and this is just a personal opinion, was in the wilderness area where we were able to fix versus where we weren't even able to go. That wilderness area was affecting what we were trying to fix, and basically is a one step forward, two step back, because we weren't able to get in there to do some preventative maintenance to protect our prior efforts, for lack of better words. So, but back to the spring runoff, after the fires, we've had it took us 7 years, I want to say, after the 2010 fires, I believe. Are those the dates?
Hyde Park.
Hyde Park fire, thank you. It took us about 7 years to clean our canals fully. We got so much sediment in there, probably 2 feet in the bottom of our canals, and we had 3 excavators running nonstop during our off season just to get this stuff out of our canals in return, which also affects a lot of the water treatment plants as well. So I apologize. I'm not too familiar with what the timber management program is. All I can tell you is how it does affect us and what we do see on our end when things are going south.
Thank you. Can you go back and I'm just curious about the 70 years of clearing out the ditches. When did that start?
We started right after the fire, and it was 7 years.
7 years. Okay, that I misheard that. Thank you.
Yes, and we did face quite a bit of problems with mudslides. We even on the Monroe, the head of the Monroe, which is actually owned by Northern Water, but we operate it. That had such a mudslide that it filled in to the point of we needed to drop machines into the tunnels that go underneath the Poudre River to clear all the sediment out from the mudslides.
So that started after the Hyde Park fire.
Yes, it was.
Great. And then you had the Cameron Peak come back and
Yes,
fill it in. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you for clarifying that. I want to make sure I understood that.
absolutely.
Thank you. Pat has her hand up.
Yes.
Pat, I lost you. You're muted.
Sorry, I took my hand down, but I didn't take my mute off. My question was what specific challenges you had with wilderness, like what you were trying to do, what you couldn't do, that kind of thing.
Probably the largest, the largest restraint has been the permitting. I know everybody has their job to do. The 401 permit, getting into the river, cleaning stuff out. We are an ag company. Everything we do, we are ag exempt for. And so I'd have to say just the loopholes we had to jump through to do what we needed to do. We even volunteered some time along with Northern and donated some culverts above the drainages, just kind of to help direct that water flow through the landscape there. But I would have to say the loopholes, the bureaucracy is what made it so hard, especially when you're standing there arguing with somebody who's in Southern Colorado who hasn't even been on site with what we're looking at. It gets a little frustrating in that point.
Thank you.
Yes,
Julie
ma'am.
has her hand up.
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for being here. I have a
Absolutely.
question. When I'm thinking about what you're saying about the sediment removal, when
Yes.
you remove that sediment from the ditch, are there challenges in terms of where you can place it because it is wildfire, because it's related to the wildfire? What challenges are there around? I mean, can you just spread it on adjacent property, or does it need to go somewhere special? And what kind of challenges does that present?
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. So basically, put everything into perspective. The ditches were here before the railroads, and the farmers started with the agriculture, and so we do have some pretty strong easements, but we also need to be very respectful. That's private property that we're going through. If we're just taking that slop out and spreading it 12 feet wide, 6 inches thick through somebody's backyard, yes, we do have the right to do that, but it doesn't mean that's what we like to do. It's a working balance with the homeowners, the private landowners, along with the entities. So a lot of that material we had to truck off. We've had to stage. We've had to do a lot of different stuff. Actually, this was kind of fun. Took some of it to CSU and did some biochar experiments with it, and wanted to see if we could give that soil to the farmers and return it back to their fields and kind of produce up their production with that in it. But the most challenging part is it is very expensive to move that amount of material. Whether it's by truck or anything, it is expensive. And with us being a private mutual ditch company, we're putting that cost on the back of a lot of shareholders that are living year to year based off their crops.
That's really interesting.
Thank you.
Mr. Morgan, sorry, I could not get my mute button to work.
Yes, sir, Mr. Moan,
Yes, sir.
excuse me. If I was listening to your presentation right, the best for water management would be to delay runoff as long as possible and to be as consistent as possible. As I understand you, people struggle with consistency from year to year. And so any management policies that we could have that would be contribute to a consistent runoff as late in the year as possible would be the most effective. And if that's correct, and have you noticed any major changes in the total yield of the North Poudre watershed?
Yes, I have. That's a wonderful question. Historically, North Poudre, let's just pick the date prior 2000. North Poudre had a prior allocation on average of 5 acre-feet per share. It was pretty flat across the board, guaranteed, unless we were looking at a severe drought. That's what was going to happen. Right now, this last year, our allocation was 3 acre-feet. That is a huge amount of water difference for a shareholder. That the main fact was we didn't have snowpack. We did have 2 years back to back that were we ended one year with no moisture, went into the winter, didn't get a whole lot, and then somehow survived this whole irrigation season on bare minimum. But what I think best way to address what Mr. Morgan is saying is the longer we can hold that snow up in there with the timber, the better it is for everybody. We can elongate how long the Poudre runs. We can utilize our priorities. We don't have to bring over water from the western slope. We can keep those decrees down, keep that. This will also play into the California water or the Colorado Water Compact with California as well. The more that we can show that we're utilizing that water, the less chance California attorneys have of coming up here and saying, hey, you guys aren't utilizing this to the best, we'll pay for it, and the federal courts will actually rule it in their favor. It isn't that we're not utilizing it, it's we can't catch it all. I'm sure you're all aware of Glade Reservoir, Halligan Expansion, Chimney Hollow. These reservoirs are all being designed and built for this faster spring runoff so that we have a place to catch it. Otherwise, we can't show that we're using this water that has literally been in our hands so we can prove we've had control of it, and then it ran away. Well, the courts are going to look at it as you didn't hold it, you didn't run it to farmers' fields, you didn't utilize it. That is not beneficial use. Therefore, we're going to dedicate it to the lower states. And so that's another topic that is coming up in this area, in the sense of the longer we can stretch out our snowpack, the more chance we have of grabbing it and utilizing it and putting it to the most beneficial use possible. So
Is the total flow over the last period, for going back quite a ways, is the total flow been pretty constant for the amount of snow? It was just not captured. Is that what
that is correct. Granted, the data I'm looking at for our spring runoff and the peak season, we are actually about 10 days earlier than we were about 3 years ago. But yes, we just can't capture it. We don't have the infrastructure. What we do have isn't big enough, and it's coming at us too fast and too hard. Historically, we are getting 100%, 120% snowpack levels, and that's great if we could keep it there, but it just disappears so fast with the winds, the heat, and the exposure.
So, Mr. Morgan, did you have another question? Because Courtney has her
Yes.
hand up as well.
what percentage of your shares are now with municipalities versus agricultural use?
So in the North Poudre system, we are 78% owned by municipalities. But we are a mutual ditch company, and which is kind of funny because we are yin and yang, for lack of better words. 76% of our usage goes to farmers. And so the municipalities rent this water back to the farmers. They own it. And so we have a rental program set up where the farmers will take the ag portion of the municipal's decree and utilize it in the system. And so 78% of our company is owned by municipalities, cities, individuals like that. But 76% of our water goes to agriculture.
So
That's
they
very
can take
interesting.
it if they needed it.
Yeah.
If they, yeah, and they need it. They need it. So.
Thank you for that. And that's very interesting about the snowpack numbers, because in our Larimer County Water Master Plan, one of our folks who helped facilitate through that is a snowpack, snow and snowpack runoff with lack of cover. And that's mentioned in our Water Master Plan. So I find those numbers very interesting. I'll have to get some more of that for our plan. But Courtney has her hand up now. Thank you.
Hi, Ted. Thanks for joining. A couple things. One, I'm taking notes, and I'm curious if you could clarify the number. You said historically the company was able to allocate 5 acre-feet per share, and now it's closer to 3 something. You said maybe last year it was 3 something.
So historically, North Poudre, we'll just say the Wild West, the 90s. In the water world, that's what we call the Wild West. And that's when we were looking 5.5 acre-feet of an allocation. This year, we did have to do a 3.5 allocation. And North Poudre is kind of set up differently. Half of our share is CBT, and North Poudre owns 40,000 units in Horsetooth. So we're the largest shareholder in there. We pull that water out and supplement it with our farmers over here in Wellington. So half of our water is CBT. That's water that you can use for consumption, industrial use, anything like that. While the other half is agriculture. Those decrees can only be put on designated territories for designated fields for designated crops. It's very decree specific, but kind of going back to what we were saying is half of our decree of that 3.5 acre-feet was CBT, and that's all sitting in Horsetooth for the municipalities. And so that tells you 1.5 feet is what we allocated per farmer of our snowpack. We didn't have any faith in it this year that it was going to provide, produce, or stick around for as long as it did. And so we're kind of having to look in the crystal ball for our ag portion on the decree because of snowpack. That is a direct bloodline to say that the snowpack directly affects the farmers due to the Poudre River Decree program.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's helpful. I'm wondering if you can also, Mr. Morgan asked this question too, but can you say more about your agricultural users, sort of like where they are and maybe like, I don't know, what they're producing.
Mhm.
And it sounds like maybe they get their water cut first, or like how it gets allocated and
Okay.
that's
Yeah. Basically every year about March, I start looking at the snowpack. I start seeing what I have in reservoirs. North Poudre is one of the big 4 of the biggest irrigation companies in the state. And there's 3 others. And so the 3 of us kind of get together, figure out what they're doing. We try and not pull at the same time, because if we do, we would we call it sweeping the river. Each company could just sweep the river and it wouldn't even make it out of the Poudre Canyon. And so we try and keep as much going through as we can through coordination on our deliveries. But back to what Mr. Morgan was saying, or I'm sorry, the question, a lot of our shareholders, just to give you a mental map, Halligan Reservoir, which is up above Cherokee Park area along 287. That's where we start on the North Fork, and our system travels all the way down to Fossil Creek Reservoir off I-25. That's our system. A lot of our farmers are corn producers, a lot of hay guys, probably 65,000 acres in hay, 120,000 acres under corn. Beets are sugar beets. That's another huge crop in this area. A lot of these farmers are contracted through the Great Western Sugar Beet contract. They still have those contracts, and so they have to produce no matter what. Hay, corn, hemp had that pop up for a while. That was kind of interesting. Nobody could figure out how to harvest it though. So literally just saw guys out there with weed whackers. It was pretty funny, but that's pretty much what's under our system as far as agriculture. A couple of feedlots. We do business with Five Rivers Cattle Company, the largest cattle company in the world. One of their feedlots are up here. And so we have to produce the right color of water. We cannot allow those cattle to be drinking agriculture water. It has to be colored the same as industrial, same as what people drink and everything. So
Thank you.
thank you.
And I got to tour Halligan a couple of times with
Oh,
Sarah
good.
Collins recently for, as you know, a large 1041. That's I asked for a tour, so it was
Good.
very, very interesting. So Christina has her hand up now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all the information. It was really helpful. I don't know a lot about Poudre irrigation, so thank you.
That's okay.
I was curious, this is more of a general question, just how much forest health is a part of your conversation? I appreciated that you brought up water quantity and quality. And I find that, you know, wildfire and particularly the sediment and turbidity, like I think the tide of forest health and wildfire impacts is really clear with water quality.
Mhm.
But when you start talking about, I appreciated your perspective that like the forest is directly related to the Colorado River negotiations. And I don't see that like connection with a lot of the conversations going on the quantity side of things. So I'm just curious, like I appreciate your perspective, but I find that it's like a lacking piece in that conversation, and just wanted your thoughts on that. Thank you.
You know, and this is just a matter of my personal opinion in the sense of in this field, there are some very, very intelligent people. They are very driven. They know what they're doing, but they tend to get inside of a box, and they lose sight that everything is connected. Everything thrives when everything else thrives. You know, you can't have it so just your water's thriving and everything around it is diminishing. I think there is a loss in that communication or conversation, just because people get so hyper focused on exactly what they're trying to accomplish, that it's I can't do what I do without Mr. Morgan. Mr. Morgan, you can't operate without what I do. You know, without the gravel companies. We are all connected, and that's kind of what I've been stressing to the Poudre River is historically the companies have played their cards very close, and it's like, guys, all of our straws are sticking out at the same place. How about we work together and benefit everybody rather than trying to play, I've got bigger cards than you, or a sneaky game or anything like that. I do see maybe with more of the younger generation coming in, they have that mentality. But the longer you're in this game, the colder you get, the harder you get, you know, the less willing you are to, my famous words that I hate the most are collaborate. You know, to me, collaboration means somebody saw my infrastructure, my decrees, and they want to use it. And so they came at me with the words, I want to collaborate. You know, but personally, I think people just get so focused on their goal and their agenda that they're willing to forget everything else to accomplish what they're trying to do.
Thank you.
So, I would, normally, well, I have, my property, I have Home Supply, Handy Ditch, Luden Ditch. I'm around all these ditch companies. And I was just talking with Boulder County and saw one of their major ditch mitigation projects that they work together with the county to do fire mitigation along the ditch pathways through the neighborhoods in some areas. Is that something that the ditch companies have started talking more about, is fire mitigation along the ditches, to also maybe, I know you do your spring kind of burning of ditches, but that's maybe different than like wildfire mitigation. So I'm wondering if that's ever a conversation or something you've talked about.
It is. That's been an ongoing battle since ditches have been made. As I had mentioned earlier, a lot of these ditches travel through private properties, backyards, stuff like that. Well, if a tree's growing out of the ditch, I'm going to look at that tree and say that full-grown cottonwood is taking 500 gallons a day. That's how I'm going to look at it. You as the homeowner, you're going to look at it as, wait a minute, that's my tree in my backyard. And from North Poudre's point of view in fire mitigation, no trees. We like to cut them down. We like to burn. Trees just cause a lot of problems for us. And so we do try and remove any trees we see growing along the canal. It does get to be a touchy subject with the homeowners, and ultimately we do have the authority to remove the trees as long as they're in our right of way, but we try and be very, very cordial about it. You know, some people are very connected to those trees, but back to the fire management, we try and take them all out for the fact of when we're burning ditch, those trees will catch fire. They'll burn for a week and then they'll flare back up when nobody's around, nobody's expecting it. All of a sudden you got a forest fire out in the middle of nowhere, or a prairie fire, I should say. So yes, our perspective is no trees along the canal for so many different reasons.
And as a homeowner, I certainly have, over the last 25 years, had those discussions. I'm curious, you mentioned cottonwoods, but we have a lot of Russian olives around, those kind of invasive species that actually even drinks double or triple that amount of water. So is that a program that you guys try to especially target those kinds of invasive species? And I'm just wondering about that kind of partnership with homeowners, because they are hard to eradicate, and but they are. I try to keep them off my property, but they're all around me and surrounding property. So I'm just curious about those invasive species that really drink a lot of water.
We do everything we can. Russian olives, if you can figure out how to kill a Russian olive, you'll be a billionaire. I promise you. You rip them out and they come back 3 times thicker. You spray them and they come back resilient. But yes, we do everything we can to try and mitigate that. Not only we ask the homeowners to contact us to come in. We'll do everything we can to get rid of it. But the ditch company also needs to understand that we are the ones carrying all of these seeds, all of this stuff through the countryside, and we can't carry it 20 miles and when it lands and sprouts, be mad at the homeowner. It is a working relationship. The biggest thing is education. Just having people understand that the ditches were there first. We are providing a service. That water is bought and paid for. We are a delivery system. We have to make a quota. Yes, we understand you live there, and it's just a conversation that comes up multiple times a year. So, excuse me.
Thank you. And I think that's the key, is having a collaborative conversation and working together. I think that's the key. So thank you for that. Mr. Morgan, your hand's raised. Thank you.
Yes, talking about going through different ownerships, obviously a lot of your canals and collection system runs through the National Forest.
Mhm.
And I've heard of some management techniques for managing the essentially right of way of the canals, a distance back from the canals, for good forestry to essentially trap sediment in the case of a wildfire or whatever. Would that be beneficial, to where if we could include management zones along the canal system so that it would mitigate the amount of sediment or water quality issues that you had? Would that be a good goal?
I think it would be. It would. I think if we could utilize the right of ways and the easements, bring those up to par, they could be used for a lot of different things. Emergency vehicle access, that's very important. Staging areas, as you were talking. If you have access into a point in the middle of nowhere, I think we need to protect it. It's same with the canals, the easements, anything. If we have already, and when I say we, if mankind has already taken the effort, established these canals, established the road, we have a platform. Instead of building new roads, new infrastructure, why not utilize what we have? And to Mr. Morgan's question, we could build very easily off of those easement for sediment traps, basins, wallows, anything like that, that will benefit the loggers, ease of loggers, along with the ditch companies for ease of maintenance. It would also cut down on the footprint, I believe, in my personal opinion.
Thank you. I was thinking of managing on a quite a bit wider scale back from the canals to protect them even more so than the right of way itself, but and maybe as a management strategy. But thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we're having a legislative priority conversation all
Oh,
day
yeah.
today later on, so people are getting prepped. Any other questions? So we had a list of questions, Courtney, but I think he's kind of addressed some of these. We've kind of had these already addressed with the questions. So we really appreciate your time today. I think there's been some really helpful information. Are you open if we had some follow-up questions after today to send them to you and continue the conversation if we had any follow-up questions?
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to do whatever I can to help you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tad, for being here today. It's been really interesting. And obviously you have a wealth of knowledge and lots of experience. And I'm really grateful to have that conversation. And we really appreciate your expertise here. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you all for what you do.
Yeah.
I appreciate it all.
Yeah. Any other questions or burning things for today? If not, we'll let Tad get back to his wonderful Friday. Happy Friday.
All right. Thank you. You guys enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Chad.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan.
Thank you. Okay. Now we'll turn on to our next presentation and guest. And thank you all for being here today. So we'll turn it over now to our Northern Water. And I believe we have Esther Vincent here. And Esther, just if you have a screen share or whatever you need to do, Courtney will help. But let's have you start the presentation and please introduce yourself. Thank you.
Well, good morning, Council. I'm Esther Vincent. I'm the Environmental Services Director at Northern Water. And I believe you want to hear a little bit of the water provider's perspective on forest health. And so I have some slides here. And let's see. Not used to using Google. I'm not sure what you're seeing on your end here. Okay. Oops, no, wrong setting.
You should be able to open up your presentation first and then just share, depending on what platform it's on, you could share a window or a screen or a tab.
It says, It says, need permission to share.
Esther, if you wanted to send your slides over, it's either Courtney or myself. We could also share for you.
Oh, hold on. I think I figured it out. Is it working now? No?
I think we're getting closer. We don't see your screen, but it does say that you are presenting.
Oh, hold on. Maybe I need to start this. No. Okay. This is being very finicky.
Yeah, why don't you email your presentation and
Yeah, it's
I can share it.
not working well. Hold on.
Or maybe
Okay.
I'll share it since I'm taking notes.
Okay, I'm going to send you a link.
Thank you.
I never have these problems because I'm not smart enough to do it in the first place. It saves a lot of grief.
It's okay.
Yes, it is.
Google is not the most friendly for sharing screen.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about that. And
That's okay.
having a hard time pulling up a link that you're going to be able to use right now. I don't know what, if it's my internet connection that's not working.
Yeah, I'm happy to walk you through it again if you think that'll be easier.
Yeah, let's try that again. I'm on I'm on a Mac, so I don't know if that's part of my problem here too.
It
Okay,
says,
so I'm on. It says share this window, but if I share this window,
Are
it's,
you-
'cause I have two
are you
screens.
using, so are you using like a PowerPoint or a PDF?
PowerPoint, yeah,
Okay. So I think do you have two screens or one screen?
I have two screens.
Okay. I would put the PowerPoint, on the separate window, have it opened. And then, if you press present, you should have the chance at the top to either share a Chrome tab, a window, or your entire screen. And if you try clicking window, you should see both of your screens. So you could either share the meeting screen, or you can share your second screen or your second window.
Yay. And I'll just add real quick, for anyone while Esther's still working on that, we are partnered as Larimer County with Northern Water to do we have paid to show a movie called The Future of Water in Northern and Agriculture. That's the date. It's called The Future of Water and Agriculture in Northern Colorado, and it's a film screening from a film actually from down in Pueblo, and it's a really important film. And we actually canceled the land use, but we're partnering with them. It'll be at the Lincoln Center, which is a City of Fort Collins Center, and it's on Monday the 13th. You're all invited if you want to come up from 4 to 6 p.m. And there'll be some panels and discussion. And we're really grateful to be partnering with them to show this film and to have those dialogues about all these related things. So just let me share that if you're interested in coming.
Is it working now?
Yes, it's
There
working.
you
Got
go.
it.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. So sorry about that. Okay. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of an overview of Northern Water very briefly. Talk about the connection between watersheds, wildfires, and water supply. I'm going to talk about what we're doing right now and how we're moving into action on this issue. This is not right. This is not right. I'm so sorry. This is not right at all. Okay, can you see my screen still?
No, I think you stopped sharing, Esther. So I think just you'll need to share again. Wow, I've never seen this before. That before.
This is really.
What happened the first time? It seemed to be working. Was it just the wrong presentation?
I know it's just not giving me. Oh, here. Let me try that. Okay.
Take a deep breath. We'll all survive, and we would love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, is this working?
Yes, we're seeing your presentation.
All right.
It
Okay.
looks great. Yes.
Okay, so we're a water provider, a raw water provider in Northern Colorado, and we provide water to over 1 million people, pretty much all the way from north of Fort Collins down to Broomfield, out to Greeley, and along the South Platte all the way to the Nebraska state line. We are, at this point in time, primarily owned by municipal interests, and we still serve about a third of our project to for irrigation purposes. And there's about 600,000 acres of water in northern Colorado that is irrigated with Colorado Big Thompson water. But our deliveries are, because of rental markets, still go to ag more predominantly than what our ownership shows, because there's leasing of water from municipalities to ag. So we're roughly 40-60 in terms of water that's actually delivered on an annual basis. And we, on average, move about 210, 220,000 acre feet per year. And we're a supplemental supply for the northern Colorado area, which means that in years that are dry in terms of native supplies in the Saskatchewan, we'll bring more water over to supplement the region. And in years that are wet, we will bring less water over from our project. We are a Trans Mountain diverter. Our collection system is located in the headwaters of the Colorado River and just around the town of Grand Lake on the east side, on the west side of Rocky Mountain National Park. And we bring water over under the divide to the east slope. And from once the water daylights into around Lake Estes, it follows a series of pipelines and tunnels, eventually reaches terminal reservoirs, Horsetooth Reservoir, Carter Lake, and Boulder Reservoir, and makes its way to municipal users and to irrigation. The green area on the map is our service area. So what do we care about Forest House? Here is our source water protection area. These are the watersheds that are upstream of our infrastructure and straddle the Continental Divide. We have about 2 million acres within that source water protection area, of which 1.3 almost million acres are forested. And this is a map of the vegetation within the source water protection area. And yeah, you can see the distribution of forested acreage on the east slope and on the west slope for us. It's important to note that on the west slope, we're close to 60% lodgepole and spruce fir forest. And that poses certain challenges when we're talking about Forest House, as opposed to the forest type that we're up against on the east slope, which does have some of these lodgepole and spruce fir forests, but is also more predominantly ponderosa pine forest, which behaves differently from a fire standpoint. Our land ownership is very fragmented, but primarily, or I should say the land ownership within the source water protection area is very fragmented and primarily in the hands of federal land managers, the Forest Service first, the Rocky Mountain National Park, and then there's a little bit of BLM land, the rest being private land for the most part. So we own very little land as Northern Water. Maybe that differentiates us from Denver, that has probably more land ownership around their system. And so we cannot work in isolation in any way, shape, or form when we are talking about Forest Health as it connects to our source watersheds. This map shows a prioritization process that we went through to identify within the source water protection area areas that were of higher importance to us, and the darker it is, the more important it is. So you can see that the hotspots in our system in terms of what's important to us, not necessarily in terms of risk associated with Forest House, but the areas that are most relevant to us relative to their proximity to our infrastructure or direct inputs of water from these watersheds. It's the west slope, it's Grand County, the headwaters, the watersheds upstream of the Three Lakes system, but also the Willow Creek watershed, and then the Big Thompson watershed, as well as the Poudre watershed, due to our work in the Poudre with Glade Reservoir that will be coming up in the future. And then there's this. These are pictures of the East Troublesome fire right after the burn in 2020, and And then this is some of the aftermath that we experienced on the burn scar or downstream of the burn scar in the years that followed. So that was a big wake-up call for Northern Water in terms of our engagement on forest health. And then these are other pictures that showed up top Willow Creek Reservoir, some debris accumulating in the reservoir up against the debris boom that we installed to protect infrastructure there. There's a Blackwater event on Grand Lake itself, right at the beach following the year of the fire. And then you can see on the right side, and this has happened annually almost every year since the fire, a toxic algae bloom in Willow Creek Reservoir.
Esther, if I can have you pause just a second. Pat had her hand up and I'm wondering if it's present to the last slides. Thank you.
It is, Esther. I was just wondering, do any of your dams also provide hydro? Are you under any FERC permits or any of those issues, or just water?
Yeah, we do have a couple of hydro power plants. They're small. There's one downstream of Granby Reservoir, and then there's one downstream of Carter Lake as well. And they're built and operating.
Thank you.
Okay, so what are we doing about this right now? We're on what I'm referencing as 3 parallel tracks, and there's 3 strategic paths that we're on to try to advance the forest health within the watersheds that are of concern to us. There's one, the first one I would call short-term projects. They're launch pad demonstration projects that are intended to provide testing of frameworks and collaborations, and I'd say kind of business models in terms of how you do forest health work. There's the development of a whole watershed action plan that I will talk about some more in a minute. And then we are engaged also in initiatives that are far outside of the footprint of our organization and that are really intended to participate along with many folks that are here and outside of this room, and that are seeking to achieve system change in Colorado. And so we're talking about really the enabling environment and the framework around forest health in terms of institution policy and funding that will allow forest health projects in the future to be more successful and to move up to scale. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a forest health roadmap. So this is kind of the strategic document that we've put together in the last couple of years, and that lays out our direction for forest health. And our primary goal is to protect water quality and infrastructure by maintaining healthy forests and watersheds. And I just want to make sure here that it's both, and it's not just fuels treatment in our mind. It's fuels treatment and stream restoration hand in hand. And I'll talk more about why both of these things have to happen in terms of our particular area and why we can't just focus on the fuels treatment part of it. And we're, so this document really kind of guides us through really strategic place-based forest health actions. And it's kind of foundation for creating a multi-year work plan. So our key strategies in that roadmap are the development of technical tools, planning and decision support tools. We have to foster strategic partnership because, as I mentioned, we don't own any of the land. And so there's no doing any kind of forest health work unless we are working very tightly with the landowners and the federal and state agencies and local agencies. We are targeting both fuels treatment and stream restoration. This has to do with the vegetation layout that I talked about, with the West Slope being primarily Lodgepole pine and spruce forest. We can't do prescribed burn in this kind of environment, or it's very limited. And so getting to scale in that kind of landscape is very challenging if you're only thinking about kind cutting trees. And because of that, the paradigm is a little bit different in the sense that we know it's going to burn, and that our interventions on the landscape in terms of forest-based treatments are more constrained, and therefore we have to think of what can we do to create resilience on the landscape when there is a fire, and we will see, you know, post-fire debris flows, sedimentation, nutrients coming in. So we feel like it's really important to talk about the streams and the ecosystem processes on the landscape and whether they're impaired and need to be restored so that they can absorb these post-fire impacts, or are they healthy? And if yes, what can we do to protect them and make sure that they continue to provide that ecosystem function that is going to be very important when there is a fire and we have to live with the post-fire environment. We're engaged on the legislative and policy advocacy, and also very much trying to figure out the development of a funding strategy. There's a big question mark here as to what that's going to look like, and I'll talk about it some more on the tail end of my presentation. Education and outreach is also another strategy, and then staying abreast of technology advancements, but also institutional and policy developments that will make this work more scalable. So I've talked about the need to develop a long-term action plan. We are in the process of doing that, building on the strategic plan that we've developed. We are now actually in the contractor selection phase of an RFP that we started in August to do a watershed scale assessment of impairments in our watersheds. Assessing the risks to infrastructure and water quality within the entire 1.3 million acres that I've talked about. The goal is to identify and protect high functioning natural systems, identify those that are impaired, prioritize forest health and stream restoration projects to boost resilience on the landscape, conduct a return on investment and analysis to guide strategic investments in watershed health, and eventually the final deliverable out of that is to develop an implementation plan with project priorities, funding, and partnership. And to be clear, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here because there's a ton of work that's being done within our area, especially on the Front Range side of the divide, not as much on the Grand County side. So the goal here is to build on the tools that already exist, fill in the gaps, and especially put the spotlight on the Grand County area where there isn't the presence of watershed coalitions that is very strong on the Front Range, but that hasn't matured or developed west of the Continental Divide, which is also why Northern is so heavily involved in this space, because there aren't local partners as evolved and robust and with enough capacity to be able to do the work that needs to be done, especially on the west side of the Continental Divide. So, so I talked about the 3 tracks, the short-term projects, the plan, the long-term plan, and then I want to touch on the Wildfire and Watershed Initiative for Resilient Colorado, because right now this is a place where Northern is heavily involved in to try to advance the policy discussion. I'm not going to delve into it right now because I'm going to circle back on this topic on the tail end of the presentation, but this is a very important pathways in our eyes to advance the conversations in terms of system change. Allison had sent me some questions that the council was really interested in. And so one of the questions was, what are the programs and policies that are important to Northern Water? The Good Neighbor Authority is essential for us. It's especially essential on the west slope of the divide because of what I said, because there's not a lot of local capacity to do work there. And so, and we are in an environment where most of the forested acreage is on federal lands. And so being able to rely and lean on the State Forest Service to be our forester, essentially, on the lands that are of concern to us and be able to do work on Forest Service land is really important, which also means that maintaining their capacity and their funding is critical, especially as the federal funding streams are dwindling, they're going to become a resource that's more and more important. The forest restoration and wildfire risk mitigation program is important for entities like Northern to find opportunities to cost share and fund projects. It's an evolving conversation with our board right now as to how we're going to fund this forest health program. Actually, we're about to go in front of them in November to talk more strategically about what that's going to look like. We know this is expensive work, and we know the federal sources of funding, which in the post-fire environment we've heavily relied upon, are really not there in terms of the pre-fire work that needs to be done. So there's a huge question as to, not just for Northern Water, this is really a global question for the state, is how are we going to sustainably fund this work moving forward? So these dollars from FORWARM and dollars that are more directly funneled through the State Forest Service, through the Healthy Forest Vibrant Communities, are very important to maintain and probably grow. And then the last piece, and I know this is not state focused, but right now we're very engaged and supportive of what we hope is going to be the adoption of the Fix Our Forest Act at the federal level. There are some really important provisions here that is going to help streamlining the process to do work on federal lands, on Forest Service land in particular. And there's also, we're hoping that there are going to be some provisions here that address the post-fire environment as well, and allow better integration of programs like EWP on Forest Service land, which right now is still kind of a stubborn challenge for people that are working in that space.
So Esther, I'm going to pause you just for a moment because James Lacera has his hand raised for a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. First of all, thank you for the ringing endorsement for the State Forest Service. I think we're very happy to always partner with you guys up there. My question, however, is the FOFA. Are you tracking the House bill that passed last year or the introduced version in the Senate that Hickenlooper is running? I'm only asking because I know that the National Association of State Foresters, NASF, and our state forester, Matt McCombs, is heavily engaged in some of those conversations. Just wondering how we can be helpful. So just wondering, are you looking at the House version last year or the current Senate version?
We've looked at both. So, I mean, we've worked heavily with the Hickenlooper team and provided them feedback on their version. And I mean, they've really addressed our comments, and we feel like it's a really good step in the right direction.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I know that there's some areas where there's some folks that are pushing back on the 10,000 acres and the CE provisions there, but there's still NEPA. There's still going to be environmental permitting. It's not like it goes away. And it's really important that we start being able to take programmatic approaches to this work, or it'll never get done.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. Thank you.
So we are actually in the process of establishing an agreement with the State Forest Service so that we can collaborate on forest and watershed health projects and really leverage the State Forest Service ability to do work on federal and non-federal lands. And we this agreement is proceeding in fiscal year 2026, which just started this week for us. So barriers, what are we up against? And there are many things, but these are like the really big ones. Funding, I've touched on this already. And in my world, the argument goes something like this. If I'm talking to my board, why should we do work on land that we don't own? Why should we fund work on land that we don't own? Shouldn't the Forest Service do this? So this is a layered conversation that has to be had. It doesn't mean that Northern Water is not willing to bring resources to the table, but I think it's always going to have to be in a cost shared environment. And so there are going to have to be several pieces to the puzzle of funding, and knowing that there's insufficient funding at the federal level, then what are the other sources of funding that need to supplement, the contributions from Northern, our local community there. Assuming you have abundant funding and you can do all the work you want, biomass management continues to, it's a very perplexing issue. What do we do with the wood that, especially on the West Slope, if you can't burn it, what do you do with it? There are piles everywhere. It's expensive to transport. So there's a really important conversation that needs to be had about creating a supply chain that provides a useful fate for this wood that needs to be removed from the forest. And all that's being solved. If there's no capacity at the Forest Service, it would still be a bottleneck. So that's important that we continue to advocate for both funding and staffing at the Forest Service at appropriate levels, because you still need people to process even if you have money to do third-party permitting and planning, there still needs to be somebody at the Forest Service that reviews that information and gives you your seal of approval to proceed. And so if they are not there, we're stuck. We can't move forward. And then with my caveats more specific to Grand County, local capacity is also a barrier. And there's been a huge focus on the wildland-urban interface, and there are a lot of wonderful watershed coalitions that are doing great work, especially on the Front Range, but you don't see that as much on the West Slope, especially in the Grand County area, where that capacity is really lacking, and they're having a hard time staffing up and creating that. So shifting over to creating system change and building on what I was just talking about, addressing, this creating a sustainable funding stream for forest and watershed health in Colorado is really, in my eyes, at the top of the list, combined with the development of a forest restoration economy. And both of these things are things that have to be, it's not like Northern Water can't solve that in isolation. These have to be statewide conversations and involving a lot of different stakeholders. And this is where I'm going back to the Wildfire and Watershed Initiative for a Resilient Colorado work, and the initiatives that they're leading. They're focused on these things that I just mentioned: creating sustainable public-private funding, and addressing other barriers to pace and scale. And one of them is forest restoration economies. On the funding stream, they have 3 focus areas. They're focused on identifying opportunities for creating statewide public funding, local public funding, as well as private public pooled funding. And then there's a 4th group that is working on this concept of creating forest restoration economies. And I know some of you are connected to work, and so you have some sense as to what we're doing, but here are some of the partners that are involved in the core group, the planning and action team that's kind of steering some of this work with the facilitation from the Keystone Policy. So there's a pretty broad group of stakeholders that is behind this effort. And there's an even broader group of interests that have been brought into these conversations that are not really on the planning teams per se, but that are invited into the conversations and have participated in focus groups on these 4 different areas that I was talking about. And why I think this is important for the Forest Health Council to stay tuned in is because I think there are some really great opportunities for synergies here between what work is doing, what the Forest Health Council is doing. And there's clear alignment in terms of the focus areas on, wildfire risk reduction, watershed resilience, cross-boundary collaboration, and then there's also a lot of overlapping participants between the Forest Health Council and then folks that are involved in work. In terms of synergy, I think work has the opportunity to be an incubator for solutions, for funding models, for ideas about biomass markets, both in terms of supporting existing industry, which is very, very small. Our timber industry in Colorado has been shrinking very in a very concerning way for a number of years. So at a minimum, we need to have a concerted statewide intention and effort for how do we keep this this industry that's barely there. We need to make sure that those who are there still remain there and don't close their doors. And we also need to think about new ways of using wood and creating a forest restoration economy. This is something that is going to require, I think, some statewide intention at the really gubernatorial level. In my eyes, it's no different than when, as a state, we said we are going to be a leader in renewable energy, and we invested towards the development of that infrastructures, and we created policies around that. We created tax rebates and it became part of our allocation, our budget allocation priorities. So I think that there's a similar conversation that needs to be had about creating a forest restoration economy so that there is a place for this wood to be used to create jobs, to create opportunities for carbon negative operations, and to give us a place, for the wood that we need to remove from the forest to go. There might be a nexus with affordable housing there as well. There are a lot of conversations that are taking place about the development of mass timber in Colorado. So because our trees are not the greatest for the more traditional timber industry, at least that's what we're hearing. So what else can we do with this wood that can't be used in that way? What other kinds of products can we create that will serve our communities and create an output for this wood? So back to the synergies. So work is a place where I think because they have the ability to reach a lot of people and they're fast moving. We're barely a year old as a group, and there's a lot that's been accomplished in a short amount of time, and we're moving at a pretty good clip. And so I think that there's an opportunity for the Forest Health Council to lean and tap into work, to be an extension in a way in terms of outreach and in terms of feeding ideas back to the council that the council can then chew on and in the policy realm, and then pass back on to legislature. And work also is, I think, a pretty good resource in terms of coalition building because of that broad reach that they've established right now. And that also is a resource that I think the council might be able to utilize and leverage. So that's all I've got, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Morgan, and I just want to tell everybody we have about 10 minutes left, so just want to try to, we always can send more questions, and I might have some more questions offline, or just a heads up that about how it sounds like there's already some work with Colorado Forest Health Council, or feel like this is working to the legislative committee, and I think that's something that we maybe need to look and talk about as a committee, because I'm not aware of that, and I didn't know that was formalized or what that looks like. But Mr. Morgan, thank you.
Traditionally, the utilization for what everybody is now calling biomass has been in industry supply chains has been paper pulp, which is not workable here in Colorado. And the paper markets are rapidly declining right now. There's been major, as we use computers instead of paper. But then we have oriented strand board, which was a use here in Colorado, and they went out of business for lack of supply because the supply consistency was not done through the agencies. And that is a traditional use that might still be appropriate. And There was a plant there at Olathe and then over in Kremling that literally died for lack of supply from the agencies. And the third one is pelletizing. And one of the problems with pelletizing here is that a large portion of the market for pellets is export. So if you're going to run a pellet plant, all of the successful pellet plants in the country pretty much have a pipe that goes in the ship that goes overseas, or at least the availability of doing that. So we're kind of up against it there, and I don't want to be negative, but if we look at pelletizing for fuels work, we're have you people looked at that for I don't want to be in the subsidy business, but we're going to have to be contractually, we're going to have an outlet for them if we're going to go with pellets, because I think paper is off the market, and I think wafer wood could work, but it takes a larger plant. And have you guys looked at coming back at pelletizing?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I said, have you looked in your working groups at pelletizing? And then the other question I would have would be, it appears as though lodgepole is an even age species when you manage for lodgepole. So consequently, the word clear cut is not a dirty word if you're managing lodgepole. It's a variety of cut sizes over a large area. So in that, lodgepole is still a fairly high value species. Excuse me, even in smaller diameters. So I think with the right continuous supply chain from your federal agencies, that you could have an economic driver and be selling part of what you are considering as a biomass problem. And so I think your legislative efforts should be pushed in that direction, because I don't think there's enough tax dollars to do the management work you want to do on the scale you need to do it. You have to have an economic driver. So I would suggest that. And lastly, have you looked at fuels manipulation to where you had less biomass you needed to remove? I keep beating that drum because I think we need to leave a lot of this material, alter it for fuels work, but we need to leave a lot of it on the ground because we cannot afford to transport it. And I would suggest that you look at that, or do you have anything that you're doing there for fuels manipulation?
So the forest restoration economy, I'll tell you that this is a very new conversation. The focus group really started like just a couple months ago. So in terms of identifying particular pathways, I don't think we're there yet. I think we're in the coalition building stage right now, trying to bring the partners, all the people that need to be part of this conversation in one place so that they can dialogue and so that they can, toss ideas around just as you're doing right now and kind of see what sticks, bring in resources and see how we can advance the discussion. So I don't think we've identified, a path forward for what that needs to look like and what that magical wood product is. That is something that needs to be figured out. That what you brought up about leaving the wood on the landscape, that's a very interesting conversation, because I think depending on who you talk to in the forestry space, you'll hear different things. Actually, I just had this conversation. We have a property up in Red Feather and met with the local coalition there about what we could do. And we were talking about mulching, and there was some concern about leaving the material on the ground because it is fuel. And so I think it depends on where and how much. And I think it would be wonderful if we could reach some sort of a understanding as to where it's appropriate to do mulching and leave the material on the ground versus having to move it. I don't have the answer to that. These are like areas of expertise that are outside of mine.
Okay, just another heads up. We have about 5 minutes left, and we're going to have to take part of our agenda to next time. So just wanted to kind of share any other pertinent questions. We could always email more questions to Esther. But Esther, would you be open for us to email you any questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. And we can, if you have questions for both presentations, I think I would email them to Courtney to kind of collect so we can send those forward. I might have a few more. So Esther, a really wonderful and detailed presentation. And I'm hoping that we can get those slides sent to us through Courtney to get it to all of us, because I think I'd like to look through those again. And again, thank you for the joining us with the October 13th for the showing of the movie. Hope you might all join us. And of course, you want to drive up here, Northern Colorado, and drive up on a Monday night, fun times, but it should be a great event. And I want to just thank you for being here and the work, the collaboration and partnership that you're involved with, and a happy Friday.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being patient with my technical troubles.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. And it's a very common thing. I think we all have struggled with that. So you're in good company, let's put it that way. So anyway, thanks for the presentation. We're going to just take a couple of minutes to kind of just cover a few items. And Esther, you're welcome to stay with us if you'd like to learn more, but we have about 5 minutes. I just wanted to look at a kind of an update. Courtney had reached out about well, the calendar. Let's talk about what's on the calendar for next time for our presentations of what's lined up first.
Yeah, thanks, Jody. So we had on the calendar one more sort of presentation meeting, and I've been coordinating with Julie and someone else from her team at Excel to see if we can get a presentation potentially on the 31st or perhaps the 7th of November if no one is available. So that's our next presentation. And then on the calendar, we really just have a few deliberation meetings coming up in November and December and early January for the committee to put together recommendations for the council.
Great. Thank you all. And then also Courtney has been in touch and we've had conversations about the education portion at the Capitol. And Courtney, I'd also wanted to just share that I had talked to the people who have organized those and done those in the hallways. And they said that's the correct room, but we can have food and meet out in the hallway and put things out in the hallway. And so it sounds like we can get that area booked for outside the Senate room, and we can have the food and stuff out in the hallway, because that's how it's done in the past. Did we get that kind of cleared up? Or
I don't think you. So you're on the email, Jody. We haven't heard back from
okay,
the Senate Services representative. So hopefully we'll hear back from him in the next couple of days. And I appreciate you being on there since you know more about the space than I do in terms of where things have happened in the past. So hopefully,
yeah.
And I can always bump him too to see if he would get back to us.
And I had also reached out to those who had used that space and said, tell me, how did you do this? Was this correct? So that is, I am correct. So they said it was just book that space and also book out the outside table, and that should be just fine. So we'll look forward to getting that done. Then we can get the dates and get it out to you. Get out the date for everyone so we can start to plan so everyone can be there and we can keep planning. Esther, we're trying to plan an educational day for breakfast at the Capitol for legislators to kind of share what the Forest Health Council does, some of the successes from previous legislation, and kind of show some successful projects and the importance of the scale and scope and importance of this work for the state. So it should be a very good opportunity to connect legislators and all with the Forest Health Council, and also maybe a recent plan, our 30-year forest vision. So Courtney, did you have any last minute things you wanted to share for all of us about the 15th meeting for the forest visioning, and then our other meeting real quick, because we're almost out of time?
Sure. Yeah. So we've scheduled an additional sort of special 1-hour council meeting on the 15th of October, and this will be to clarify and discuss as a council the 30-year vision and what implementation means, how we want to assign or not assign actors to the different goals and strategies. So I think it's important for people to show up to say, as a council, what do you anticipate this vision being and these goals and actions? Who do you anticipate doing them? Should that be prescriptive? Should it be recommendations? So I think it's a really important conversation to have. And then on the 29th, we'll be adopting the vision, and then those conversations will continue about how to move this forward and how to kind of put it into action. There will also be a classic legislative committee update at the full Forest Health Council meeting. So Commissioner Shattuck McNally, you always do a wonderful job with those, just kind of letting everyone know what we've been up to.
I look forward to, thank you for that. That's kind words. I'm looking forward to that conversation, and it's been a lot happening, so I haven't been able to engage as deeply as I hoped, but at least I've been able to keep up. So, so it's 10 o'clock. So I think we've covered all the agenda items, but look for us to have those 2 other meetings, and we'll get another agenda out and get those final times, but reflect on the slides in this and maybe start formulating for our deliberations. So we're kind of starting from not a place of a blank page, but maybe you have some thoughts and we can move on from there, because there's been some really powerful presentations we've had the last couple of months, and I appreciate everyone's time. So with that, I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful Friday. It's a beautiful weekend. Get outside. I finished my 100 miles of hiking in Rocky just in time before the shutdown. So got my 100 miles in, and it's beautiful, and I'm still feeling the sore and tired hips, but I'm very happy to get that done. And I'm about 176 overall for all the hiking I've done, or even around the world. So I just wanted to share with you all. It's great to see these different forests and be in different counties and explore different forests and areas. And we live in such a beautiful, gorgeous state. And I just appreciate all that you all do to take care of our landscapes. It's amazing what we have around us. And I just feel so fortunate and blessed. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
All this car stop going on.
All right. Happy Friday, everybody. We are adjourned at 10:01, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Courtney and Allison and everyone, and